Good morning.
Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Are people born homosexuals, or is it a choice? It's a question that has sparked heated debates across dinner tables, courtrooms and legislative chambers in the United States for decades. The answer to this question isn't just theoretical. It carries real-world implications for LGBTQ+ rights, societal acceptance, and how individuals see themselves within a cultural landscape that often demands labels. But what if the truth isn't as binary as the debate itself? Today we'll unpack the two central narratives, the born this way argument, which roots homosexuality in biology, and the lifestyle choice perspective, which sees it as a matter of personal or moral decision. By exploring the historical, scientific, and cultural underpinnings of these perspectives, we'll not only uncover the complexity of this debate, but also its profound impact on society. To understand the present debate, we must first step back in time. In the early 20th century, homosexuality was often labelled as a moral failing or even a criminal act. It wasn't until the mid-1900s that the narrative began to shift, thanks to early scientific studies like Alfred Kinsey's groundbreaking research on human sexuality. Kinsey's findings suggested that sexual orientation existed on a spectrum, challenging the rigid categories society had imposed. The 1969 Stonewall Riots marked a pivotal moment, giving rise to the modern LGBTQ+ rights movement. Activists began challenging the moral condemnation of homosexuality, emphasizing its naturalness and prevalence. By the 1980s and 1990s, the born this way narrative gained traction as scientific studies hinted at biological factors influencing sexual orientation, such as prenatal hormones and genetics. On the flip side, the lifestyle choice argument, deeply rooted in religious beliefs, persisted. Many conservative groups argued that homosexuality was a behaviour, one that could be controlled or changed. This perspective became a cornerstone of anti-LGBTQ+ rhetoric, influencing policies and public opinion for decades. The born this way perspective hinges on the idea that sexual orientation is innate, much like eye colour or handedness. Scientific studies lend weight to this argument. For example, research on identical twins suggests a genetic component to sexual orientation, although it's not entirely deterministic. Other studies point to hormonal influences during fetal development, indicating that biology plays a significant role. Culturally, the born this way narrative has been a powerful tool for advocacy. It reframes homosexuality not as a choice, but as a fundamental aspect of identity, something that cannot and should not be changed. This perspective has found a strong foothold in pop culture, most notably through Lady Gaga's anthem, Born This Way, which became a rallying cry for LGBTQ+ acceptance. However, some critics argue that this narrative, while empowering, can be limiting. Does it reduce a person's rich and complex identity to a biological imperative? And what happens to those who may not see their sexuality as innate, but still valid and deserving of respect? In contrast, the lifestyle choice perspective views homosexuality as a decision or behaviour. This argument is often rooted in religious traditions, particularly those that interpret homosexuality as sinful. For example, evangelical leaders have long promoted the idea that individuals can choose to reject same-sex attractions through prayer or conversion therapy. Politically, this narrative has been wielded to justify opposition to LGBTQ+ rights. If homosexuality is a choice, proponents argue, it doesn't warrant the same protections as immutable characteristics like race or gender. This perspective has fueled campaigns like California's Proposition 8, which sought to ban same-sex marriage. Yet, the lifestyle choice argument faces significant challenges. Conversion therapy, once touted as a solution, has been widely discredited and condemned by major psychological associations. Moreover, personal testimonies from LGBTQ+ individuals often reveal that their orientation feels anything but voluntary. Additionally, this perspective has alienated members of faith communities, sometimes with devastating consequences. For instance, in Kenya, the sole church led and attended by LGBTQ+ individuals has been forced to relocate multiple times due to attacks and death threats, compelling its members to worship in secrecy. Similarly, in Rwanda, LGBTQ+ church members have resorted to gathering in homes after facing hostility and closures of their worship spaces. These examples underscore how framing homosexuality as a lifestyle choice can contribute to a hostile environment, driving some to fear for their safety even in spaces meant for spiritual refuge. Public opinion in the US has shifted dramatically over the past few decades. According to recent polls, a majority of Americans now support LGBTQ+ rights and believe that sexual orientation is not a choice. However, the divide remains stark along generational and regional lines. Younger Americans are more likely to embrace the born this way perspective, while older and more religious populations often adhere to the lifestyle choice narrative. Media has played a pivotal role in shaping these perceptions. Positive representation of LGBTQ+ characters in film and television has helped normalize diverse sexual orientations. At the same time, social media has amplified both supportive and oppositional voices, creating echo chambers that reinforce existing beliefs. Perhaps the most significant limitation of this debate is its binary nature. By framing homosexuality as either innate or a choice, we risk oversimplifying a deeply personal and multifaceted aspect of identity. Sexuality is influenced by a complex interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors. For some, it may feel like an unchangeable core of their being. For others, it may evolve over time. This broader understanding invites a shift in focus. Instead of debating origins, we might ask, how can we create a society that values and respects individuals regardless of how they identify or why, especially if their choices or identity are inconsequential to others? And how should Christians approach this issue in their communities, particularly when it comes to welcoming and supporting gay church members? This is a question that many struggle with, often unsure of how to balance their beliefs with love and understanding. Framing the conversation around dignity, equality, and shared humanity offers a path forward that transcends divisive narratives. Personally, as a Christian, I disagree with the born this way school of thought, as it doesn't take much effort to see its glaring weaknesses. Evidence for sex being intricately tied to sexuality is overwhelming in nature, history, and even biblically. However, while I reject the concept of homosexuality, I value human life even more. Hence, I strive to respect people who identify as such. Respect, after all, doesn't necessarily mean endorsing others' opinions. It means acknowledging their humanity and treating them with dignity. The born this way versus lifestyle choice debate is more than an academic exercise. It shapes laws, influences social norms, and impacts the lives of millions. While the Born This Way argument has been a cornerstone of LGBTQ+ advocacy, it's essential to recognise the limitations of framing identity solely through biology. Similarly, the lifestyle choice perspective's reliance on moral judgment has caused harm and perpetuated stigma. Ultimately, the goal should not be to prove one perspective right and the other wrong, but to foster a culture of understanding and acceptance. When we move beyond labels and debates, we can begin to see people not as categories or controversies, but as individuals worthy of respect and love. So, whether someone is born this way or not, what matters most is the way we choose to treat one another. Let's make that choice count. If you're interested in exploring truth, skepticism, and faith in a fun and deeper way, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Together, let's challenge our perspectives and grow in understanding. God bless you all.